Hey
Hey, hello,
Leo.
Rana. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. You having a good day?
Yeah. So, should I
Fantastic.
say good afternoon for you and good morning for me, right?
Do you know what? I need to look at my clock. I work in so many different time zones these days that I end up confusing myself. So yeah, I can confirm it is my afternoon. It's 3 p.m. here, so it's all good. How's it going your side?
Yeah, it's 11 a.m. here.
11 a.m. Pretty early.
Still in the
Um,
morning.
just before we came on air, actually, you told me a quite an interesting story. I was asking you how come you're so quick on the keyboard? Um,
Yeah.
And I said, is it because you're a guitar player? And does that help? Um, just tell everyone how you've become
Yeah,
so nimble
yeah.
on the keyboard.
Yeah, so back then when I was an intern in an investment bank, the guys won't let you use the mouse for anything. You have to use on the keyboards, especially when you are using Excel. So from that, I learned a lot of shortcuts and a lot of stuff that made me to be uh, more quickly in doing this kind of thing.
So no mouse allowed.
Yeah, no mouse allowed.
Interesting. Interesting. Awesome. Right. So let's just welcome everyone to episode 3 of lowcodera Live. This is a new segment, new show, runs weekly every Wednesday, 3 p.m. UK time. That's 2 p.m. UTC. And the series is all about building enterprise grade apps using Power Apps and the best of lowcodera. And in the first part of our series, we're focused on building a task management app, which is a fairly common business use case. Quite quite common to have tasks in every business, tasks which span different departments or span the whole breadth of the organization. And this is what this task management app is about. So why don't we just remind our viewers and anyone new joining, either live or later, what this app looks like and what we've achieved so far in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yes, so I can see it's popped up on screen. So this is what the
Hmm.
front screen of our task management app looks like. It's a nice dashboard providing an overview of the different tasks and their level of completion, but also depicting the criticality and priority of tasks in nice
Hmm.
ways. And this is quite reassuring because it's telling me that we're working on tasks which are high priority or medium priority more than other tasks. So it's a
Hmm.
quite useful view of what's going on. So from the dashboard, we can get to other parts of the app. And last week's episode was focused around interacting with the tasks in a nice Kanban view. So can we maybe just go there again, just to remind people of what we did last week? This is our
Hmm.
Kanban view of those tasks. And from here, we're able to of course, get a visual indication of tasks and where they are at this particular moment in time. But as you're demonstrating there, we can drag and drop between the different lanes to manage the life cycle of these tasks in a nice, friendly way, which people have become accustomed to in
Hmm.
modern day apps. And so this is a fully interactive Kanban board which links into our data set, and we covered this off in last week's episode.
Hmm.
Prior to that, we also in week 1, I believe, had a summary page of the tasks. Can we just maybe
Yeah.
navigate to to that view to
Hmm.
remind our folks of what this screen is about? This is where we started building
Hmm.
the app together on that day, and this is a simple view of the tasks which can be filtered by progress. And where I believe we're heading over to today is we're going to be talking about how to manipulate and edit data in a more usable way, and perhaps in a way in which people are more accustomed to in Excel, and this is focused on advanced data grid editing inside the Power App, and that's what we're going to be covering off. Before we jump into the meat of today's session and cover off how to go about building this particular screen, let's just give users an indication of what's possible to do with this power grid, as we like to call it. So you're just demonstrating there how it's possible to have an integrated search. I can see you typing in the word
Hmm.
new there against a work item, and we found our one relating to a newsletter there. So having a nice integrated column-based search is not something you can do in Power Apps today natively. So this is
Hmm.
pretty neat. Being able to have a filter, a column-based filter, which just works just like other tools do. You can see that working quite nicely on screen there to allow you to filter between priorities. We can also use the sort column functionality to click on the column headers. And in this case, you're organizing your tasks by start date in ascending or descending order. What else can we do? I think we can even group the rows, right,
Right.
to provide a nice summary of tasks. In this case, you've organized it by category, and you can see how many we've got as you collapse and expand those different segments. So quite a lot of functionality, useful functionality baked into this grid, and we'll also be uh, demonstrating some of the editing features, which I don't know if we can just quickly demo one right now. The one
Hmm.
I like the most is being able to populate a value and drag down to change the view. Our nice fill handle.
Okay.
So which one are you going to go for?
Let's change things to
Critical.
critical.
Wow, you're going to be keeping some folks busy, is all
Yeah.
I can say. And so that's you just with a simple drag and drop there, copying and pasting values in next to no time. Otherwise, you'd have to type or select those individually.
Hmm.
So from just viewing the data to editing the data, there's many benefits that this type of advanced data grid experience provides to your end users and time saving and productivity improvements, which are realized. So Leo, are you ready to show everyone how to build this?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go for it.
Fantastic. Right, I'll let you take it away then.
All right. Thanks, Raha. Okay, guys, welcome to this session. And as we did for the other sessions, we are going to follow our guide. So if you are following uh, this use case with us, you can go for live.lowcodera.com and find all of the material, all of the formulas, snippets that you can use for creating the app yourself. Okay, so I'm going to follow the guide as well. And the first thing we're going to do, let's go for the app we are doing last week. So last week we created a Kanban screen, but we also have task screen and new task screen. That's what we done so far. And right now, what we want to do is to create a new screen, a screen for using the power grid component, which we just demonstrated. Okay, so I'm going to call this screen, what should I call it, Rehan?
We should call it data editing screen or task
Uh,
editing.
okay, let's call task edit. All
Yeah,
right,
I think that makes sense.
that's a good name. Okay, once we have a new screen, we can add the component. So I think I already have it here, but in case you don't have, you just need to go for get more components, go to the code tab, and just search for power grid. This is the name of the component we are using today. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to wait to load because I already have it here. So I'm just going to select Power Grid, and now we have Power Grid right here,
You have an invisible power grid at the
an
moment.
invisible Power Grid, yeah.
Yes.
And to make it visible, we need to start uh, setting things up. So the first thing we want to do is to create a local collection in which we are going to make the change locally. And let's let's get the unvisible property of this page. Let me try again. Hidden invisible. Okay, and create a collection called work and progress tracker, and I'm going to get this SharePoint list into this collection. So,
Yeah, just a reminder, that's our underlying
mhm,
data source is that SharePoint work progress tracker list. That's
mhm,
what we're using for this series to build this app. And at this
right.
moment, you're
Mhm,
loading the data into a local collection, and we'll explain more about why we're doing that, and that will become clearer a bit later, right? It's for
mhm,
performance reasons as we manipulate the data locally. We don't
yeah.
continually want to be talking to SharePoint as we're updating the grid. We probably only want to be talking to SharePoint when we're ready to
Mhm,
save those changes back, right?
yeah. Good point, Raha.
Yeah.
So now that we have this collection to work locally on the changes being made, let's connect the collection to Power Grid. So I have this first property here called items, and now I have connected the data inside of it, but we still not seeing any data. And the reason for that is because we need also to set um, this schema for the columns. So I have a snippet for that. And here you can see that we have the field name and the display name. Also, we have this property called ski that we are going to understand why we have it later. But basically, this is going to help us to interact with the data. So in this schema, we're going to provide the the data we want to display and how we want to display. So we can do even things like conditional formatting. So right here, we're going through that a bit later, but we are making uh, different colors for uh, the priority depending on the priority value, and also for date types we can use different data format, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason we have uh, this schema. Any
Yeah.
comments, Raha?
No, I think we'll wait for you to get it wired up, and then I think it's probably worth
Mhm.
just running through some of those features. I think you need to reload your screen to initiate the collection with some data, which I can now see. Um,
Mhm.
so uh, at this point, you might want to, as you're doing now, just adjust some of the properties to
Yes,
adjust the look and feel to what you are more
yeah, I think it's worth
comfortable with.
uh, we talking about some of the properties of Power Grid. So
Yeah.
we have uh, we can change the team real quickly by just selecting one of the teams that we have here. So we had like a dark team when we we first saw the data, and we can easily change for a more
A
white,
non-dark theme.
yeah, non-dark team,
Yeah,
a light team
absolutely.
maybe. Okay,
Absolutely.
all right.
So yeah, I think the thing we want to, before we maybe talk about some of the other properties, is we've now got a grid rendering results. We can see that
Mhm.
on screen. But I think it's important that we just talk in a bit more depth about the column schema, which we just quickly copied and pasted in. And I think you
Oh
made a
yeah.
few references to it, but I would like to
Mm-hmm.
maybe just elaborate a little bit more on what we mean by this data
Mm-hmm.
schema. So, are you able to just flip open the Power Effects for the data schema, which is
Right.
now in
Mm-hmm.
there? Great. So, the purpose of this data schema is to really showcase and allow some of the advanced functionality which we've got exposed on the grid and on columns to be made available. So, for example, if we're displaying a date, how do we want that date to be formatted? So we have a data type uh, attribute in our schema, which denotes the type of data it is, but we also have a data format attribute. And in the case of a date, we can control how that date needs to be displayed as per different format requirements that we have in different regions around the world. If it's
Mm-hmm.
a number column, which I don't think we've got any numeric data in here today, but we
Mm-hmm.
can use that data format expression to define how many decimal places or have some sort of prefix
Mm-hmm.
defined before that data. So all of this becomes possible through defining these attributes in the schema. The other example that you alluded to, which we'll probably talk a bit about in a few moments' time, is the conditional
Mm-hmm.
formatting expressions. Again, we can only achieve that functionality if we have the necessary uh, code snippets placed within this data schema power effects, which we've defined. And it follows a fairly simple JSON structure. So really, the data schema is about making sure the columns display how you want them to display, and where you need some of the advanced power that this grid provides, you're able to then specify that against each individual column, and that's why you need a schema.
Nice. And one more thing that maybe we can show here is we're doing this conditional formatting for uh, the color of the font, right? But we couldn't use for different formatting, right?
Yeah, so let's just show people perhaps what that looks like at the moment if you go back to the grid, just so they get an
Mm-hmm.
appreciation of what it's actually plotting. So we are
Yeah.
plotting task priority, and we're simply saying if it's medium, then
Mm-hmm.
amber, if it's critical red, and I think you've even got black defined for a low priority at the moment, right?
Yes.
Well, the great thing about this grid is that you're able to define different formatting expressions for the types of effects that you want to create. So I think at the moment we're just changing the text color,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps we want to change the whole background color of the cell. How do we do that?
Yeah, we can simply change the property here. And so instead of color, I could use background.
Okay.
Some color here, like gray. And
Wow, instantly. So that's now
yeah.
changed the effect
Mm-hmm.
right there. So you're not going to
Yeah.
miss that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is all CSS, right, Rahan?
Yes.
These
So
properties.
I think it's worth again
Mm-hmm.
just maybe slight detour, but telling people about how many different expressions are supported in that conditional formatting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're going to head over to the documentation area,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably want to go to docs.lowcodera.com, right, which is our main documentation area for,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
I was in the wrong tab. Okay.
yeah.
Here we are.
And yeah, so if you go to our power grid, which you're already on, and then go to our conditional formatting section, what you'll find is a link to, if you follow it down, there you go,
CSS
CSS
attributes.
attributes, which we support, which links to a third party site. But in principle, any one of these expressions is supported, and the one we've chosen there is background, but then there's these other ones which you may or may not want to use,
Mhm.
things like borders.
Mhm.
So depending on the effect that you're after, there's quite a lot of flexibility in those, but we'll probably save that for another day and
Yeah.
go
All
back to
right.
the main course.
Yeah. Very interesting. All right. So I'll change this property back to color instead of background. Right. So I see we have different toggles right here, and this allows to turn on or turn off different features of the power grid. So, for instance, we showed this group rules feature that allow us to group by any column. I'm turning it on. Um, Filter sidebar is a good one. Right.
Yes. So
All
again,
right.
if you're looking for more power to filter maybe by multiple columns,
Mm-hmm.
that's the guy. That's your guy. You want to quickly just demo that? Maybe just
Yeah.
click on that as an end user,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, it's not doing much in this instance there. It's set us up nicely, but what that would do, maybe you need to reload the
Mm-hmm.
screen, but we'll save that for another day
Okay.
because there's be too much to cover otherwise. Is It allows you to filter by multiple
Mm-hmm.
columns, a bit like you see in Power BI when you've got the filter pane on the right. So that's integrated into the grid as well. But
Right.
yeah,
But
but
we are using column search for the demo, right? Which
correct.
is this one.
We saw that in the demo earlier on. So I think that's worth turning on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Turn off this use dataset API.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We'll probably talk more about that in a little while when it comes to saving the data.
right. And turn off the status bar, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
right now I think we are in the same page of our main app.
yeah.
All right.
Just for a say, if I may
Mm-hmm.
interrupt you for a second, just because we had a couple of questions flash up earlier.
Okay.
Um, Atajan, thanks for watching the show and following along with us. The question was, can you share the schema at the end of the session? Yes, absolutely. In fact, we already have because we've got it documented on our support site for
Mm-hmm.
this series. That's live.lowcodera.com. I had to think about that for a second. That's live.lowcodera.com, and you'll find all the code snippets, including the column schema that we
Yeah.
exposed in this
It's all
demo.
here.
It's all here ready to copy and paste. The other question that you asked is why do you use the three equal sign? Again, this is our own expression language. Well, it's not really our own. It kind of comes from sort of JavaScript to allow us to perform the conditional formatting. We are using in this case, we are, I think, looking at the value in a text column. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. The
And
text column.
therefore three uh, the three equal sign as a relational operator makes sense to fulfill that operation, and that's the reason why. Um, but if it was perhaps a number, you could get away with just a more straightforward equals operator. But as you can see there, there's also other operators which you can use in those conditional formatting expressions to ultimately fulfill your requirements around your conditional statement. Okay,
All
that was
right.
it.
All right. Thanks for the comments. Okay, the next step that we want to achieve is now to interact with the data because right now if we make any changes, nothing is going to happen, right? We're going to see the data in the collection. So we need to uh, get a way of making changes into the collection. And there's a way of doing it that you can just follow the step by step. I'm going to move to this another section. So right here, I'm explaining that we have this property called onUpdate items, which is going to give us a string of everything that has been changed on the on Power Grid. So every time I'm making changes here, I think it's worth even bringing
Yeah.
it into to a label so it's more clear to understand. We have this property called onUpdate items. So this is listening to whatever changes you are doing in Power Grid. So every time you make something here, uh, this property is going to change, and we are going to use this mechanism to write back the data to our collection, right?
Right. So what this event is, or this property, output property of the component is exposing in its own little format, is what changes have just taken place to
Mm-hmm.
any row or column combination, and it's writing it out to that output property. And
Mm-hmm.
then I guess what you're going to show us is how we can then read from that to get it into a format which is more aligned to a Power Apps collection, right? Because I think one of the limitations which Power Apps has at the moment is that it's not
Mm-hmm.
capable of processing JSON
Mm-hmm.
as a data structure and going from JSON straight into a collection. And so what the guys at lowcodera have had to do is implement this output property
Mm-hmm.
so that you can then read from it to understand what changes have been made and then whack it back into a collection, as I'm sure you're going to show us in a second.
Yes, yes. So this is happening on every time we change anything, and for this reason we want to use this property called onChange, right? So every time we have a change, we're going to trigger and treat the this change as it happens. So we can use let's go step by step, but the first thing that we want to do is to make this piece of string uh, into a collection. We want to break the string in different rows. That's why we have this tag row right here. So let's go back to our example to make it more clear. So right here, I'm showing that we have the name of the column, which is category, and the value, and then we have this row tag, and it repeats in case we did changes in more than one record. And for making this string to to be parsed into a collection, we are going to use this snippet right here, and the result that we should come up is to get a collection like this. But this is just the first step. So I'm going to copy the snippet. Let's go for the on change property. I'm getting an error. This is because I don't have this yet, and this because I need to rename the name of the control so it matches the formula. Okay, so now we're good. And if I perform any change right here, so for instance, if I drag this for the next line, of course it's not going to change because we're not changed the collection yet, but we have this parsed into a collection, right? We're splitting
Yeah,
the
yeah.
string.
So if I'm not mistaken, you've now got this collection called Updated Rows Collection, and
Mm-hmm.
that is now in a Power Apps native collection format, and it's
Right.
tracking that change. So
Mm-hmm.
the column, the value is
Yes.
is in
Yes.
that collection. Okay.
That's right. And the next step we want to do is to get the information that we have inside. So we have ID, we have the name of the column, and we have the value that uh, of the change that has been made. So now we're going to take one more step and make this in a more friendly, more, how can I say, more like a table format for this data, right? So we need to just copy another snippet, and
Yeah.
which is great that you don't need actually to understand all this. Might be complex for some of you.
It might look like a lot of power effects, and all we're
Yeah.
doing is just, getting the data back into format which we can work with inside of
Mhm.
our Power App, right? That's all we're doing here, and hopefully that will become clearer after this step.
Yes, but the thing is, you just can copy and paste. You don't need actually to make any significant change, right?
No,
And it's
no,
going to work.
exactly that. So
That's
this
my
code
part.
will work for any example. The only thing you need to be concerned with is the name of your component to make sure that matches up with that code snippet. But other than that, it's plug and play code.
Right. So let me do some change here and see what is coming up. I don't see there yet. Okay.
Yeah. So you just need to initiate that collection. So you've now got two collections, but the second collection looks like the one
Mhm.
that's closer to what you need.
All right. So now if I make any change right here, for instance, like the one I did right now, I should see. I'm not seeing where is
There
it.
it is. Is it there? The third from the bottom?
Ah, okay,
There you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
it's done. Now we created this new collection and is more organized because right now we have the field name, the ID, and the value, and is going to be important. So to be in this way because we can now retrieve the data, write back the data to our collection.
So that is a collection of the changes in, so it's simply telling you what's changed, which column and what's the ID of that
Mm-hmm.
row. So
Yeah,
is that
right.
right? So you got the field name. So when
Mm-hmm.
you made those changes on the grid a few seconds ago, you changed the priority to critical on
Mm-hmm.
row ID 4, and you changed the priority to critical on item with the ID 5. That's what you did. And
Yes.
we've now got that into a collection.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So last step is to get this back to our collection, to write this back to our collection. And for that, we also have a snippet so we can go faster. But in this case, what we are doing, we're using for all to create an iteration and go through all of that data. And we are also using the switch statement to assess the name of the field that that is in there. So if we go back to the collection, we are going to use the switch statement to see what is the field name, and after we 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 get this information, we are going to patch to the right place in our collection.
Yes, and obviously
Yeah.
different fields have different field types. So when you're patching, as we know, you need to handle that according to what the data type is. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
got numeric fields, you need to use the value expression. If it's a text field, then you can just patch it straight through. If it's a date field, I think we've got a couple of those, then
Mm-hmm.
you need to use the date value expression when you're
Mm-hmm.
performing a patch, right? And so
Yeah,
that's why
that's
we're
one.
going through on a case by case basis to
Mm-hmm.
determine how to patch.
Right. So this would be a patch like we are already used to, right? Not
Yes.
different from
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
All right.
All we're doing now is processing the changes in that collection and patching it back to our data collection, which has the items.
Right. So I'm going to paste last step right here, right? And right now, if we do any kind of changes, it should write back to our collection, and the changes should be visible here. So if I change for critical now, I see that the data is being refreshed, and I can see the changes that we just made.
Awesome. So now those changes are being patched to the collection. Is that right?
Yeah, right. And
Is it worth, I'm
when we
just wondering, just doing a
Mhm.
quick before and after. So if we look at the current state of the collection, the underlying collection, and then we'll
Mhm.
perform a change to one particular row maybe.
Right.
So
So the collection we are changing
yeah,
is this
yeah,
one,
is that
right?
one? Yeah, yeah, that's the one. That's the one you
Okay,
initiated.
so
Yeah.
yeah, we have ID from 1 to 5 right here,
hmm
and the categories. So let's change the categories for.
Let's just do one item. So let's just do maybe
Okay,
the first one just to keep it simple. And shall we just maybe change the priority or the category, whichever you like? Maybe.
okay, I'll change the category then for design.
Okay. And
Back to the
yeah,
collection.
yeah. So I'd expect that now to
Yeah,
say
so
design.
we change for design.
Yeah. So all of that code, which seemed like a long bit of code, was listening for the changes,
Mm-hmm.
manipulating the format into a collection so that we could then use a for all loop to look at those
Mm-hmm.
changes and then patch the respective change back to the collection. And that
Mm-hmm.
means those changes are now reflected onto the grid in real time as they happen.
Yeah, Uh, and the final step is to get this data back to the SharePoint list, which is the original data source, right? So
Right,
at
because
this point,
that's we're not touching SharePoint yet, are we? We're just
no.
manipulating the data
Mm-hmm.
locally. And the reason for that, I guess, is performance, right? Because if you were
Mm-hmm.
making lots of changes and you were talking back to SharePoint every minute, that could get pretty slow, right? So this is where an in-memory collection is more efficient at handling those interactions.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, let's suppose that I made a mistake right here and I don't want to save the changes. I think it's
Yes.
a more safe way to deliver the experience for the user, right?
Yeah, that's another good point, actually. Um,
Okay, so the final step then is to use a button to save the changes. So I'm using a lowcodera button, and I'm going to make a few changes, make the label with the save word. Let's change for success, which is a green button, but we can use whatever color we want. And let's use an icon for it, make the font size bigger. Now we have this nice button, and everything we need to do now is just use patch to write the data back to SharePoint, which we also have this snippet right here. So all we're going to do is just choose the patch to write back these columns that we are changing. So I'm going to copy and paste here, and now it should already be working. I'm going to use just one more formula just to check if we got any kind of errors while patching the data for SharePoint. So I'm going to use this if statement and check if it's empty the error stable of work progress tracker. In case it's empty, I'm going to notify data saved successfully, and that's it. I should make some testing.
Yes, let's see if we can get these changes back into SharePoint.
Okay, so I'm going just to drag something here, like the priority or the start date.
Oh, you love making everything critical, don't you?
Yeah,
You're causing a lot of people stress here, Leo.
yeah. And let's say it's not start, it's critical and it's not start,
Wow.
which is even worse.
Someone's not going to sleep tonight.
Yeah. And once we are done with the changes, then we can save it back to SharePoint, and I can see that we have the information that it has been saved. So if we check our SharePoint list, we can see the modified column that this data was updated a few seconds ago, right? So we can see it's all critical and the start date. It's not the start. It was the start date. Yeah, that we
Yeah, so
changed.
you
Mm-hmm.
can see there's a lot more critical stuff there now, and it was modified a few seconds ago. So that is
Yeah.
talking back to SharePoint, which is what
Mm-hmm.
we wanted. I think it's worth just very quickly summarizing the steps that we went through, because it seemed like uh, a large number of steps, but actually it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. When we
Mm-hmm.
hopefully just replay what we
Right.
did back quickly.
Yeah.
So step one, I was making some notes, I think, well, certainly in my head and one or two scribbles beside me. You
Mm-hmm.
added the grid onto your canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Step two was you created a local in-memory collection of our SharePoint data source, and
Mm-hmm.
you made that available on the onVisible property.
Mm-hmm.
You then bound that local collection to the items property of the power grid. Okay, so that means the data source off the grid was hooked into this local collection.
Right.
To make our grid work and to unlock the advanced functionality and column formatting and things like that, we defined a column schema, which is what
Mm-hmm.
this is. One
Yeah.
of the parts of that column schema was the expression for the conditional formatting. We talked a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's your column
Right.
schema.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last step was how to handle changes on the grid and how to save those back. So you use the onChange event
Mm-hmm.
of the grid to, first of all, pass the changes that the grid was recognizing, and that's what the first two collections, which we copied and pasted onto here,
Mm-hmm.
were doing. So we had a nice collection which we could then use to iterate through with the for all loop to then patch those changes into that in-memory collection which the
Mm-hmm.
grid is bound to. And at that point, you're seeing the changes as you make them on the grid. And the
Mm-hmm.
final step, of course, is we can optionally save those changes back to the underlying data source, which of course is SharePoint in this app. And that's where you added the save button at the bottom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right. There's a nice summary of what we did.
I was paying attention. Yeah. Okay, so anything else you wanted to cover off? Maybe you wanted to just complete the page by adding
Yes.
the navigation from what we see
I
across the app.
just copy and paste the nav bar.
Yeah.
All right.
You're saving this one up, aren't you, Leo? You're going to tell us a bit more about how to wire up the navigation component once we've got all the screens in the app built. Is that right?
Yes, I'm saving for the last part of our series. because by then we're going to have all of the screens set, and then is a nice moment to set up the schema.
The navigation. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so I don't know if you wanted to cover off anything else, but I
Hmm.
think that's very useful. Your grid looks like it's working. It's talking to SharePoint. It's got conditional formatting. Should we just double check to see if we can do things like group the rows and search? Let's see if that's coming through on
Yeah.
our implementation.
Right. So let's go one by one. The filters, for instance, we'll always go for this one,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
sorting for, I don't know, whatever column, maybe start and date,
Yeah.
and also the grouping. If you want to group by any of the columns, I'm going to use category, but we could
Yeah.
use any other one.
Yeah. No point of filtering by priority anymore since you set everything to critical more or less. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all
Ah,
good.
we
All
can
right.
use also this
Yeah.
other option of filter, right?
Yes, that's the in
Okay.
column filter. So that's all hooked up. So it's all there, ready to
It's all
go.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
Just want to say thank you for Atajan and uh, whoever might be on the audience. Thank you
Yes,
guys for
so
being here.
we've got a few people on and some more, no doubt, will be following along later. Just a reminder, you can find all of the code snippets which we use today on our complimentary website, which is live.lowcodera.com. You'll find all the instructions for episodes 1 to 3. This is episode
Mm-hmm.
3, right, Leo? I'm losing count. So
Yeah,
all
it's true.
first 3 episodes are documented on there. And of course, the videos are on LinkedIn Live and also on our YouTube channel now as well. So follow along. And if there's nothing else, then thank you for your time today. And join us again next week where we'll be building the next part of our exciting app. I think there's maybe 2 to 3 more episodes to go to complete this
Mm-hmm.
app.
That's right.
And then we've got some exciting further plans for what we're going to be doing with lowcodera Live, which we'll hopefully learn more about in the next week or two.
All right.
So yeah, thank you for everyone
Thank
who
you. See you
attended.
guys next week.
See you soon. All right, Leo, take care, my friend.
You as well. Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
see you later.
Bye.